Hey guys, I'm Matt. And I'm Mike. And we're Bardic Inspiration. Today we're here to teach you the core mechanics and rules to the new Marvel Multiverse tabletop role-playing game.
So the first thing that we're going to talk about today is the dice system, because for all of our D&D friends out there, this game does not utilize a typical D20 system. Instead, all of your rolls are going to be made using 3d6, aptly titled the D616 system.
Now, one of these dice is called your Marvel die, and you want to make sure that you can distinguish it fairly easily from your other two. Until the game can manufacture specific dice for this purpose, the book does suggest that you use a differently colored D6 for your Marvel die. Today, ours will be this little red one right here.
So let's get into how you use this dice set in the game. First off, you make a D616 roll anytime your character wants to perform an action check. So these will trigger anytime that you want to attempt something that might have a chance at failing.
Generally, it's up to your game master, or narrator in this case, to decide whenever your actions require a roll. So you don't need to call for a roll if your character wishes to do something simple, like subscribing to our channel and leaving a like on this video.
Now, if your character wants to attempt anything more complicated than that, then it's going to call for an action check. So go ahead and grab your D616 and give them a toss. And from there, you're going to want to add that total up from the roll, add any relevant action or ability modifiers, and then compare that number to the target number set by your narrator.
So typically, that's all there is to action checks. However, there are a couple special conditions to watch out for. If you roll a 1 on all 3 dice, that's called a botched roll, and you automatically fail your attempted action, likely with the worst possible result. If you roll a 1 on the Marvel die and anything other than a 1 on your other 2 dice, that's called a fantastic roll. From here, you compare your roll to the target number, counting this 1 as a 6. If your total is equal to or greater than the target number, you succeed with an added benefit decided by your narrator. If your total ends up being less than the target number, don't worry just yet. This is called a fantastic failure, and while you do still fail, something good happens as a result.
So there's one other special condition when rolling your D616, and this is called the ultimate fantastic roll. So this triggers whenever you roll a 1 on the Marvel die and then a 6 on both of the other 2 die. In this scenario, whatever action you were attempting, within reason, automatically succeeds, ignoring any other effects such as trouble, which we'll go on to in a minute.
The book does a wonderful job detailing just what can happen using the fantastic roll system, using them as a tool for deeper storytelling, adding extra drama to your games. Fantastic successes can be considered a yes and result, where your action succeeds and you benefit from something extra. Fantastic failures, conversely, are considered a no but, where your action fails though something unexpectedly positive happens. Many of your powers will list a condition triggered by a fantastic success, though if nothing's listed, you can come up with one yourself. This is the same for a fantastic failure. It's up to the player and the narrator to decide what that extra benefit ends up being. In any case, the book's default extra for any fantastic roll is that the player gains an edge on their next action.
Now that we're familiar with edge and trouble, we can get into what that actually means in terms of game mechanics. At any time, the narrator can grant a player an edge on an action check. This can be for any number of reasons, but it always represents some sort of advantage that your character has in order to perform said action check. This could be due to favorable circumstances, special skills, or even maybe you're using special tools. Sometimes your character can have multiple sources of edge, which in this system, they stack, giving you maybe double, triple, quadruple, and so on sources of edge. Using your edge, you can re-roll a single die per source of edge on your action check, taking either result. When you have multiple sources on one check, you can choose to roll either the same die multiple times, or you can roll different die, or none at all.
Let's say that your character is at a disadvantage during their action check. This will give them a source of trouble. Now, trouble occurs whenever the odds are against you, whether it's due to poor equipment, lack of expertise, or some other drawback or inopportune circumstance. Once again, the sources of trouble are determined by your narrator, and they act the opposite of having an edge. This means that after you roll, the narrator decides which of your dice to re-roll, stacking to account for all of your sources of trouble.
Now, the rules are written fairly loose about both edge and trouble. The game understands that not all sources of edge and trouble are equal in all scenarios, so feel free to talk with your narrator about whether or not you think edge or trouble is warranted in your current situation. For example, the book describes invisibility as something that can grant players an edge. However, if you're up against a threat that doesn't rely on sight, being invisible really won't give you much of a benefit. So don't be afraid to ask questions and talk things out with your narrator to determine a fair outcome.
Also, in a situation where your character has multiple sources of edge and trouble, these will cancel out with each other. So if you have 2 edge and 1 trouble, these will cancel out and you're left with 1 edge remaining. Likewise, if you have 2 trouble and 1 edge, they cancel out and now you're stuck with 1 source of trouble.
So the last thing to talk about in the core mechanics section is target numbers. A target number is essentially just the number that you're trying to match or beat when you roll an action check. There are 2 different tables in this section that lay out what the target number should be. One of the tables is what determines the base target number depending on the rank of the character, and this is to simulate that a rank 25 character should still be able to fail at certain checks. The other table offers up a series of modifiers that you can apply to the target number based on how difficult you think that the check actually is. So when considering the modifiers to a target number, the baseline at a net 0 is considered challenging. So as far as gameplay is concerned, the base target number for a rank 5 character is 19, meaning that a challenging check requires a target number of 19 in order to succeed. Now the narrator might decide that that check could be easier or more difficult based on the situation. So the modifiers range all the way from trivial at a -7 to the target number, all the way up to impossible at a +7 to the target number.
Well, that about wraps up the core mechanics section of this book. The next breakdown we're going to cover is the combat system for the Marvel Multiverse tabletop role-playing game.
So go ahead and give this video a like and then subscribe so that way you don't miss the next video.
And until then, guys, take care.